And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Chris Berryman, author, channeler of ET consciousnesses, and alien experiencer. Chris, thanks for joining me today and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Chris, let's start at the beginning. And how did this contact begin for you?
Yes. Well, it was really during the pandemic, like the early days of the pandemic. And I was, I live alone and I was mostly by myself in my house. I was having certain sensory experiences. They'd been brewing or building up for a while. And they were geometric. They were light and light particles. And eventually I started seeing eyes of beings that would sort of fade in and out. And it got to a point where I would then see faces in entire beings. And I was scared at first. I was, I think I yelled out the first time I was laying in bed. And I think I screamed out the first time I really saw some of these faces up close, especially since some of them were like not obviously non-human. Some of them were human though. So it was sort of a melting pot. And then I had an experience, probably, I guess this would be the spring of 2020, where I was brought up. I was laying in bed the whole time. There was a light on. It was very strange. I was brought up and I had a feeling of moving upward. And then this feeling of like exhilaration, like I was having 5 Reiki sessions at the same time. And my eyes were closed and I knew something was happening. So I just told myself, okay, just relax, try to chill out, try to just go with this. And I could see all of a sudden a control panel. I could see a desert landscape through a window, and I could see hands. And so I saw many things, and it was a positive thing. It wasn't a frightening or it was exhilarating, but it wasn't really a frightening thing. And then as these experiences continued, I finally just confronted the visions. I said, what do you want? What is this? What's going on? And a conversation started with a being known as N1. And that was that voyage into that spacecraft or whatever it was the foundation for my first book, which was called Flying Saucer Visions, which is an illustrated sci-fi work. And then also the continuing conversation led to my upcoming book, which was called the N1 Sessions, and which is a continuing conversation with N1.
Are you saying that they abducted your consciousness and brought it to a ship?
I suppose you could view it that way. It didn't feel like abduction to me. It felt like someone lending a hand in maybe I grabbed the hand, maybe I accepted, but I certainly guess that you could view it that way. Yeah.
Did you ask N1 why me?
I think somewhere along the way that I did, and I think it has something to do with at the time I had a rough relationship situation that ended the previous year. And I think it has something to do that I was available. And I do have some training with spirit communication and energy work and things like that. That might have been a part of it as well. I'm not 100% sure why me, though.
When you said you've had some training, were you already able to channel?
I have some training being able to work with inner guidance and sort of psychic techniques, I guess. So yeah, spirit communication, yeah. But nothing, I've never trained in, formally trained in working with ETs or channeling aliens or anything like that. So I had some foundation in it, but I had to learn real quick. I had to sort of develop my own method real quick about how to hold that frequency in order to communicate with this very, very high energy, which when I'm channeling it, I feel exhilarated. it can be having to work with the material, because a lot of times I speak it into into my phone, into a recording device on my phone first, and then I'll transcribe it. But working in the energy of the material for a while, it can really exhaust me. So I have to rest and I have to take it slowly and everything. So it's interesting that way. It's definitely a higher vibration.
You said that when you looked out the window, you saw a desert landscape.
Yes.
Does that mean the ship's parked here on Earth somewhere?
I think they were visiting Earth. I think they were visiting the vicinity. And it looked kind of like the Mojave. In my book, I played with that a little bit. And there's the main character, this little boy. They visit Egypt, the desert in Egypt. But the desert scene that I saw seemed like, Nevada or New Mexico or something like that.
All right. Are your books nonfiction?
The first book is fiction. The first book is a storybook, middle grade sci-fi, ages 10 and up, I say. Mm-hmm. And my upcoming book, the N1 Sessions, is nonfiction.
All right.
Essays, nonfiction essays, metaphysical consciousness essays, yeah.
Did you ever see N1? And if so, what does he look like?
I think I've seen him in glimpses, and I've seen a lot of these beings in glimpses. And I would say he's very tall. He seems to have very compelling eyes, looks human, but has very, very distinct features, sort of like, I'm trying to think if there's some comparison from like Star Trek or anything. And there's really not. I would say he's an attractive fellow, a tall, attractive fellow with he has some sandy blonde hair, compelling blue eyes, bluish green eyes, and very still as well.
Where is he from?
From what I've picked up, and there's a little bit about this in the N1 Sessions, that he originates from the Sirius constellation, but has moved on and works with a group of beings. They sort of form a collective on the outer limits of Orion. So sort of near the stars Safe, between the stars Sirius A and Safe, that's where their interdimensional collective exists.
Is he still bringing you on board the ship, or
no?
You're just
no. That only happened once. That happened once, and I think that I don't think there's any need. I think that was sort of an introduction or a special voyage, special treat, I guess you'd say.
Are you actually having conversations while you're channeling? How does that work?
Well, a back and forth conversation can happen, but it usually, for me, this happens by getting very relaxed, and I have to sort of enter a light trance state. I have a whole routine that I do to get into this, and I think that just really helps. And I ask my guides to connect me with this consciousness, Orion light consciousness, and N1. Thus, I usually say the source of my visions. And I ask them to borrow my vocal cords. And that will work for a period of time. And then if there's any further questions that I have, then I can go back in and sort of repeat the process in a simple way, or I can use automatic writing if I need to sort of clarify any questions that I have.
Do you ever channel him publicly or only at home?
No, that's not something that I'm really, I'm not a big believer in that. I think that I know there are people who do that, and they're very, at least at this stage of the game, those channelers are very, they seem very confident in doing so. I call that horse and pony show channeling. I think it's legitimate, But I think you have to be very careful that if even for a second that the channeler loses the source, there's all sorts of other things that could slip in. And I think that for me, the method that I use, it just allows me a little more accountability to go back and recheck, sort of scan the messages that come through and clarify anything that I need clarified. And so for me, that works.
Can we expand on that? And what I'd like to know is, how do you lose connection to the source?
There can be all sorts of things. There's the mind can get involved if you're not careful. There could be something in the environment, like someone knocks at the door or something, or somebody, like if you're doing one of these public events, somebody's phone goes off. There could be outer distractions. There could be something, there could be something coming through that maybe the channeler is, some part of them is starting to get not comfortable about. There's all sorts of things that could happen, and I haven't had many problems with that type of situation, but it's just something that I always want to guard against, because there have been in like past channelers, past books that have been published. I think there have been some things, very, very talented mediums, very talented channelers, and I think their source was legitimate. There's a possibility that the source has just strong points of view, but like something like the Law of One, which I think was very deep, a lot of very deep material, introduced this sort of different dimensions of consciousness to a broader audience. But there's this whole thing in it that homosexuality comes from overpopulation, which is just like I think things like that are dangerous. And if there was like any bias, that channeler was also an Orthodox Christian at one time. So I want to be able to I want to be able to recheck my material to make sure that everything is in alignment with a higher purpose and a higher good. I hope that makes sense.
It does. And you also mentioned that other things could creep in. Do you mean
if
that?
You're not careful, like I do things like to work with my spirit guides to really, they have or a firewall, so no imposters move in. That's really important to me as well. And if you have a good technique, if you have solid technique and some training, I don't think there's much danger of that. But, and I always before I start the process, I always say to my guides, I say, if anything tries to move in that is not source or spirit or the source that we're talking about, Orion Light Consciousness, let me know and we'll cut the connection. We'll yank the cord out. So that's kind of the way I'm working right now.
Are there a lot of negative entities around you and other channelers that are waiting to step in and cause problems?
I think there are they do exist around everyone who that are perhaps waiting to cause problems. Yes. And with the people who are doing work like I do, there's many people doing any sort of consciousness work, any healing, any mediumship, anything like that. I think that they might be drawn to the light of what's happening, but they might not like it at the same time. So yes, and there also might be, if you're not clear and you're not careful, there might be entities or ghosts or spooks, whatever you want to call it, who want to pretend like they're a source of light, that pretend that they're light consciousness in posture. But if anything like that moved in, at this stage of the game, I think I'd know it pretty quickly. Yeah. One example, if you want anything further, is you might see when you close your eyes at night, some entities, red eyes, and they're minions. They don't really have any power. They get a kick out of scaring people. And if you just tell them to just go, just go screw yourself, like they usually just go away. But they might get a thrill out of making someone scared. So that's one example of a opportunistic entity or a parasitic entity in my experience.
You also channel the Orion contingent.
Yes.
Who are they?
Well, N1 is, from what I've picked up, and you can read more about this in the N1 sessions, N1 is the leader of the Orion contingent. So there's a group, and sometimes they speak individually, and sometimes they speak as a group consciousness. And that's been my experience in receiving the information, that sometimes it comes through as there's definitely one person talking. And sometimes it has a different feeling. It feels a bit bigger picture, as if a group is speaking.
Have they revealed to you why they've come to Earth?
They've revealed that they've been coming here a long time, on and off, but they are interested in, right now, they have many experiments going on. They're sort of cosmic anthropologists. And they have many projects, many experiments going on right now. One of them is to find hidden light particles that exist near power zones that will help them to create many things. One being a sort of a portal of transdimensional communication. And there's a whole chapter about that in the N1 sessions. But that's one of the reasons why they want more direct collaboration, I guess. This is what they're saying to me and talking about in detail with me.
That's interesting. Do you think they or any other ETs are involved with CERN down here?
That's a possibility. Yeah. That's something I'd have to check out myself. Yeah. That's a strong possibility.
Well, that's something you can ask during your next channeling session.
Yeah. I'll check that out and get back to you.
There you go. Have they ever revealed to you Earth's history, or at least humanity's history on Earth?
Yes. They go into this in the book, in the early chapters of the book. It addresses this, not in great detail, but they talk about the original purpose of Earth, that it was meant to be a place of collaboration and experiment for many star races, as well as us, sort of this indigenous race of Earth that they've actually helped to co-create, us as a species. That a group of light beings, light extraterrestrials, work together to create us. That went on. We were slowly developing as a race. There was visitation from many species, many parts of the universe. And then a group or several groups of not so nice beings, more malevolent beings, intervened and sort of messed things up a little bit, sort of co-opted the situation. That's what they tell me. And there are other people. There's different versions of this. There are other researchers and other channelers who say similar things as well. It's a unique story that they describe in the book, but it's in it sort of chimes in with some other sources as well.
Would you say that we've been overtaken by the reptilians?
I think that they are part of it. That they might be sort of like the one of the controllers going on right now, one of the real estate brokers of the planet, I guess you'd say. Yes, but this time that we're living in is really interesting because we've been bombarded with information and acceleration, like things that have moved us forward very quickly. And there's been, over the past 50, 60 years, there's been, since the dawn of what is kind of known as the New Age, there's been just groups after groups forming that are studying consciousness, and people who channel ET consciousness. Jane Roberts, the Seth material, she was one of the first ones. I have a lot of respect for her. So there's this buzz that's really, activating right now. We're kind of in this period of awakening, it seems like. And a lot of people talk about, we're living in a simulation. And I think that's an intriguing idea. I might call it a matrix, or maybe like a controlled reality. I think there's definitely some frequency control going on on some level. But with all this buzz popping up, like your show, other shows on the internet, and Gaia, and all sorts of different points of view coming through, talking about this, these beings that we call the malevolent forces, they like the idea. I have a feeling that they like to present themselves as having more power than they really have. So they might get off on being viewed as sort of these puppet masters of the universe or something. And they might sort of mess with these concepts because they have the ability, I believe. I think I see evidence of this, to mess with interdimensional reality. And so they might actually sort of mess with us with these concepts, about simulation and mind control, and the reptilians are going to get us, or whatever, thing like that. They might try to use that to their advantage.
If things are accelerating, what is the end game that they're accelerating to?
Well, I think that it probably will involve contact in some way, whether that cosmic contact will happen more in the physical first, or more in sort of an energetic way. I'm not sure. I would guess that it's going to be more of an energetic thing first, too. Number one, they're not stupid. They're not going to come here and, let people attack them in fear, or let, people, bombs go off, or whatever might happen if the mothership landed. But I think that it's happening already. All these experiences that people are having, these lucid dreams and, visions and sensations. And then there's also the abduction phenomena, which might be a mixed bag of things happening. But I also think it's going to, somehow it has something to do with moving away from war, and moving away from this possible destruction of the world we're living in. So those are both big things that are going to take time to realize. There are some people predicting that there's going to be contact in 2027. I'm not sure I'm convinced of that, but it might be, again, it might start slowly. It might be there might be phenomena. There just might be more phenomena appearing all over the place.
Some people believe that the Earth is a prison.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it can feel that way, but I think that's really, sometimes it just feels like a prison. And there are horrible, violent things that happen, and people living in suffering all over the planet, no doubt about it. But I think it's important to remember that we've come here for a purpose, that we have a calling here in this lifetime that we're in. And if we can connect to that, if we can connect to that higher purpose, we might realize that we're here to somehow uplift other people, and as well as ourselves, and uplift consciousness and create mechanisms that will end poverty and, inspire people on a bigger level. I think if we can tap into that, we won't feel like we're in a prison every day.
Well, if we're not a prison, do you think at least we're under quarantine from the rest of the galactic family?
I think that a quarantine has been put into place, and there's in the N1 sessions, there's some information about that. But they're also saying that the source that I channel also is saying that the quarantine is coming to an end. So that's really exciting. How that will happen, what will happen after the quarantine officially is over, we'll have to see. But that could mean more contact with different star races. It could mean solutions to some of the problems that are going on the planet. It's very exciting.
Has N1 given you a message for humanity?
I think it's all a message for humanity. The entire book is a message for humanity. Sometimes there's a couple times in the book, and I made note of this, where he was definitely talking to just me, but 90% of it, I would say, is a message to humanity, yeah, about many different subjects, from consciousness to UFOs to cults, and moving forward, using the human energy body for somatic awareness, and sort of being able to connect. Our human aura is like a stargate, and we can use it to connect to galactic consciousness and to travel, really. Actually, we can use our auras to travel into the universe.
Can you give us a few examples of his messages for humanity?
Well, one thing is, I think one of the most important things is that we have to start trusting ourselves a little more. And that in the end of the book, I think I put out the question, what's the most important thing we need to do right now? And it came back that you mustn't follow the herd, that we must trust our own discernment, trust our own gut instincts, as well as the people we're drawn to, the people who are drawn to your podcast, Jeff, and trust, gather information. You don't have to rush to judgment about any issue going on. You don't have to join a mob or a frenzy of believers of any certain thing, but to really trust our own discernment and our own perspective about life, as well as being free to make our own life choices. And, with all this buzz going on right now, all this change in the air, and I think we can also see a resistance in the general culture to this change that is happening. But a lot of people are having powerful experiences. There's this consciousness bubbling up inside of them. And it also seems, and I don't know if we're wired this way as a species or if we're programmed, but when what we want starts to conflict with our families or the social groups that we belong to, that we get scared, that when we start to change, this social homeostasis kicks in, and we get sort of battered down into falling back into line with the status quo. And I think that can be really painful, having to battle that from day to day. People who feel that they're not connecting with the mainstream anymore, or the official information. Being able to trust ourselves, trust our own intuition and our own consciousness, and to follow who we want to follow, to be drawn to who we want to be drawn to. I think there can be a stigma from society connected to that, and it can be hard.
Do you channel any other beings besides the Orion contingent?
Not at the moment. They are the main ones. I also work with my guides, my guardian angels, and I'm sort of trained to do that. I have worked a bit with the Pleiadians. I was able to channel them once. They sort of came in and gave some messages once. It was a while ago. I don't remember. They were just so happy. They were so excited to talk. And it was a very different energy than the Orion energy. But mostly right now I'm focused on, the Orion contingent and just sort of being and I do it in cycles. Like I do it sort of at moon cycles, full moons, new moons, solstices, things like that. So I don't get overwhelmed, so I don't feel any sort of burden or pressure. So it's just something that comes through in a cycle, I guess you'd say.
How have you changed personally after having all this contact and channeling?
I feel that I'm much more content being alone in my house, just at peace being by myself. And with that in mind, I also need, I have to remind myself, okay, you need social interaction. So I seek it out. I have, really great friends who support me and different circles that I belong to, creative circles and spiritual circles. But I think that I'm much more unfiltered now, that I don't hold back from speaking my truth, and that I have to remember that if I can stay relaxed, and N1 talks about this, he sort of coaches us through that in the N1 sessions as well. There's no stigma anymore. People are allowed to speak their truth. There's not going to be a witch hunt. There may be, people might come after you on social media, but big deal, I don't care. And I guess you could just say I'm much more willing to speak what I want to say, in different social situations. I don't always open my mouth, but if I want to, I know I can.
How did your friends and families respond once you came out as a channeler?
Well, my family, I don't think they really know yet, but they read my first book, but I don't think they understood that N1, because N1 is also in the first book, Flying Saucer Visions. He's one of the main characters. I think you can, if it's more comfortable, you can just view it as a nice story. But they know that I'm involved in things like this. So a lot of my friends are right there with me. They're also picking up things from spirit or do hypnosis, or they're healers. So most of my friends are really open to things like this.
So do you think that the Orion contingent is more about cooperation with us than control?
Absolutely. A very reverent energy. I call them space monks because they have this very reverent, very calm energy. And yes, cooperation is a big theme, not to infringe on anyone's free will, but to just share information. It feels like in the book, the information that they're sharing is just like, this is what we want you to know. You can take it and use it in your life as you want to use it. But there's no scolding. There's no dogma that comes along with that.
This realm that they're in and the negative entities that are in as well, what is that?
Well, I've come to see that there are different dimensions of consciousness. And in the N1 sessions, they talk about different things. They talk about 3D, they talk about 5D, 6D, 8D, all the way up to 9D. And the realm that they live in, I'm told that they have the ability to move back and forth, but the realm that they live in they call it a very peaceful realm where creation is possible and experimentation is possible. What it looks like to me and what it sounds like to me is that they're able to create things just through intention and energy. And perhaps then that moves down into the more physical dimensions like the one we live in. Yes, but they I'm told, and it goes into this in the N1 sessions as well, that they have the ability to become physical, to present themselves in form as well. And I think a lot of advanced ETs also have this ability.
Do you have a timeline for when open contact is going to occur and we'll be one big happy Star Trek family?
I think things are going to accelerate very quickly, but I don't really know a timeline about how. I think that might also depend on the state of the world and perhaps how quickly people open their minds to things, but to phenomena like this, But I do believe that things are going to start changing, so they're going to start moving much more quickly. So fasten your seatbelt.
Have they commented on the state of the planet and more directly about all the wars that are happening and all the pollution and things like that?
The environment as well as war are some of the things that they're most concerned about. But in the N1 sessions, the source talks about there are ways that we don't know about yet that can heal the environmental problems, and that we have to be careful to rush into quick fixes in order to try to solve things like climate change or other devastating environmental problems. In war, the possibility of World War III is a big concern. And what's been coming through about that is that we must examine ourselves. And first, we have to examine our own warlike tendencies, our own inner violence, and that this anger, this wanting to rip apart, even people who you political leaders who you absolutely don't agree with, and I'm the worst. I mean, I'm the worst at practicing this. I struggle with this all the time. That venom directed towards any party, if you're a Republican and the Democrats, or if you're a Democrat and the Republicans, whatever, that venom is really adding fuel to the fire and making things ramp up, contributing to violence, contributing to the possibility of war. So those are two of the main things that they're about in the environment and World War III, I guess you'd say, that they're very concerned about.
If anybody wants to make a connection with them, can they do it?
I think so. I think they can. Again, all it takes is pure intentions, being in a relaxed place, and maybe some training about how to do this. That will help. But yes, I think, and I also have a feeling that I'm not the only person on the planet who is channeling them right now. But yes, I think that's true with almost any advanced consciousness. If you want to talk to whatever group it is in any dimension, you can, if you know how to do it. And there's great tools out there now in the form of books and courses and things that you can do. I've been very influenced, and I find a lot of inspiration by some of the books of Barbara Hand Clough. And she, like her book, Alchemy of Nine Dimensions, how she breaks down the quality of the different dimensions and the beings who live there.
What do you think is holding back humanity?
Yes, there might be this control, this matrix from the outside, the way things have been set up and rewired a long, long time ago might have something to do with that. But I think where I'm at right now, it seems to be the main thing is a fear of losing identity that stops us from reaching out to someone who you absolutely, as far as external appearances go, not want to talk to or not want to have anything to do with. That thing that stops us from not seeing them as a human being is just those people, whatever it might be, whatever group that might be, whatever type of person that might be. And sometimes religion can influence that, I think, or atheism can influence that. Which that's religion and atheism are fine options if that's what a person wants to do. But I think it's important that we look at this. I think that's part of the matrix. Pitting people against each other is a part of this energy dynamic that's going on right now that we can let go of. If we're able to reach across the aisle to someone who we might not agree, we not totally see eye to eye on everything, that could be a very powerful thing.
Has anyone given you any practical advice on how to raise our own frequencies and be better people?
Yes. And at the end of the book, in the N1 sessions, there is a whole series of 10 exercises, body-mind exercises that you can practice. It's influenced by the entire book, by the material. And some of it is sort of, especially to get people moving, is sort of the best of my experience that I've picked up, tools I've picked up over the years. But grounding in just resting in a meditative state each day. There's all sorts of grounding techniques out there. There's also a simple grounding technique in the N1 sessions. But grounding is a great way to start connecting to that electromagnetic energy of the planet. It's very simple, and anyone can do it like that.
For the skeptical people that are watching this, how can you assure them that channeling is real?
I don't think that's necessary to pick up the N1 sessions and read it, or any other book like that. I don't think that you need to believe that. I think that just wherever you think it's coming from, the author's unconscious mind, the universe, an Orion collective, whatever, I invite them to just read the material and take away what they want to take away from it. You can form any opinion you want to about it, but I would say, no, there's no need to dismiss something just because it has a channeled source or a spiritual source. I think they might enjoy what the N1 sessions has to say.
Well, if people want to find out more about the book, should they go to a website or Amazon?
Sure. You can go to my website, berrymanbooks.com. There's about both books on there. But if you want to buy the book, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other websites where books are commonly sold, it's widely available. And it's still in pre-order right now. I think the official release date is February 1st.
Oh, wow. It's interesting that it can be already up, as pre-order so far out.
Yeah. For several months now. There's some reason for that. It's beyond my pay grade to understand how that works. But yeah, it is.
If people want to reach out to you and ask you questions, are you up for that?
Absolutely. And I'd love to, once they read the book, I'd love to hear their takeaways from it. And you can just contact me on my website, Berryman Books, like Berryman, berrymanbooks.com.
Chris, before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
Yeah, I think that the positive message that I'd like to leave you with is to trust yourself. And I'm going to try to trust myself, and that the world is doing much better than how it appears right now. Amazing things are happening in the world. Amazing projects are popping up, and that as long as we keep our human connection, that's the most important thing right now. That's what it feels to me. So I guess that's all I can say.
Chris, thank you for your message.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Jeff, so much for having me and to being able to talk about the N1 sessions.
Thank you for being my guest.
Okay. Take care.
You too. Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.